before you created this beautiful Church of Light, before you were even an architect, you had another profession. You were a boxer. Tell us about your life before you put pen to paper.
Every time I go abroad, people always ask me if I'm really self-taught in architecture. It is true that I've not received any special education in my field. I visited Kyoto, Osaka, Nagoya to see architecture there, and I visited Europe as well to study architecture by myself. I read a lot and I learned a lot because I was motivated to study architecture, and eventually I got my license. I was also a boxer, as you said, but that was because there was a boxing gym near my home, so I gave that a try. What I learned from boxing was that no one would help me during a fight. In architecture, nobody helps me to think. But when it comes to the actual building process, I work with lots of people in cooperation. I learned how to work both ways.
Talking of the past, when you were a kid, you used to spend a lot of time making model planes and boats out of wood. And you were also picking up any tip that you could from the carpenter who lived across the road from you. How great an influence was he on you?
Times have changed, and everything can be done through computers nowadays. When I was a kid, it wasn't like that. We used to see the work of carpenters, and I would watch the woodwork by my neighbors. I'd try to do some woodworking myself, draw something with my own hands, and listening to sound and music in the real world. Through all these things, I guess I was able to learn how to think for myself. But the influence of these experiences doesn't appear instantly. It's like nutrition. You never know how it will affect you in the future. But I think it's very important to feed this type of nutrition to today's children when they're still young.
Being self-taught in architecture, though, is almost unheard of. You know, so many in your profession, though, even after years and years of study, when they try and get into this business, they struggle for a very long time to make it, if they make it at all. You don't seem to have had any such difficulty. Why do you think that is?
I'm still struggling. I always worry what my next project will be or how it will work out, so I'm struggling all the time.
It doesn't look like you're struggling. I mean, you've won the Pritzker Prize, which is the award that every architect in the world wants to win. Is it strange for you to think of, you know, this guy who finished his education much earlier than most, walked away with such an honor?
I'm not about the prize. I'm living my life in the now, and what is important is that I'm continuing to create. I don't care about the prize in the past. I'm always looking towards my next building.
Surely that must have been a source of great pride for you.
I think this prize means that people have approved of what I created, with the help of many people. In that sense, I'm proud to have this prize.
Architecture is a competitive business. You know, it seems at the moment architects are always all over the world trying to out-design each other to make something bigger than the previous person, at least better than the previous person. And a lot of it seems to come down to money. How then does art fit into all this? Is it taking a back seat?
Architecture is an art, and at the same time it is reality. The reality includes functions and costs. In the art world, paintings and sculpture don't have to do with function and cost. In that sense, we have to think of both artistic expression and the realities such as functions and the cost when we make architecture. Architecture has to stand for 100 or 200 years, and in that sense, it is a public entity. Think about walking on streets. Wherever you go, you see buildings. Considering the public nature of architecture, we must tackle architectural design very seriously.
It's interesting that you should bring that up, because when you were starting out, you were very interested in America's foremost architect, Frank Lloyd Wright, and it now seems that his buildings are cracking and they've got leaks throughout them as well. They have not stood the test of time, structurally speaking. How do you ensure that yours will stand the test of time?
Well, I haven't lived as long as Frank Lloyd Wright. When a major earthquake struck the area of Kansai Kobe on January 17, 1995, I had 35 buildings which I designed in that area. Fortunately, no buildings got cracks or fell down. I hope that they'll survive years from now. In order to keep a building in good condition, what should we do? Maintenance is very important. There's a Japanese traditional custom called major cleanup, where we clean up thoroughly once a year. However, when modern architecture came into place, people began to forget the once-a-year maintenance. If we remember this custom again and conduct major maintenance once a year, our buildings will be able to stand forever.
Kobe was just flattened, so terribly affected by the earthquake in 1995. As you say, that your buildings escaped pretty much without a scratch. How do you explain that?
We had anticipated that there would be an earthquake one day in this area, so we factored in that anticipation during our structural design. That's one reason.
You were also involved in the reconstruction of Kobe after the earthquake. What sort of a challenge was that for you?
I've been doing that for 10 years. The first thing I considered was how to build a network with the people of the devastated area and to create the future with them. I did some fundraising to support orphans because the earthquake left many kids without parents. Also, I've been working on projects to make sure people continue to remember the victims. The scenery of the area was destroyed, so we planted white flowers, 300,000 magnolia trees, hoping that those trees can be psychological support for the people left behind, so that they can live together hand in hand. That's what we've been doing the past 10 years.
Of course, as we know, Japan is earthquake prone, which makes it all the more disturbing that the architect Hidetsugu Aneha has admitted to falsifying data and lying about the strength of his buildings in order to try and conserve money on materials. What did you think when you heard that?
That was an extreme case of negligence, and there was a small number of people who did this. But most people who are involved in architecture are working in good faith. At the Issei Miyake project, which you'll be seeing soon, all are working in a very serious manner, and they're the majority. In that sense, this case troubled us a lot.
Coming up, Olympic dreams, Tadao Ando's vision for Tokyo 2016.
So what I came up with was a big forest over Tokyo Bay, a forest on the sea.